Good morning, Sara. Thank you so much for joining me. And we started having this conversation about doing a recording such a long time ago. But in fact, today, it was at that stage, it was about talking about getting more people involved in politics and which is just this enormous passion of mine, which I have constantly avoided, I must say. So I found your whole concept of getting people more involved really, really interesting. But like all of us, are pivoting during lockdown and during coronavirus. Talk to me about what do you think is actually the platforms that we should be getting involved in now? Because we currently spend our lives with people telling us, don't get involved, shut up, stay out, stay down, stay home, actually. And just don't get involved. With someone of my personality, that's a bit like waving a red flag. And I'm being sad about this because I'm like, okay, let's just see how this pans out. But to go from a message of get involved to now step back, step out must be as hard for you as it is for me.
Yeah, I don't feel like my message has necessarily changed, because I still believe that it's absolutely critical for people to get involved, to stay informed, to use the opportunities that they have and the power that they have to hold their leaders to account and make a difference. And I think the challenge right now is that even in normal times, because we have this kind of constant barrage of bad news, there's a lot of cynicism. There's a lot of what I think of as a kind of helpless and hopeless mindset. You know, I can't make a difference because I'm just one person. And, you know, when people say to me, you know, there's no point in trying to change things because I can never make a difference, I tend to agree with them, because actually, if you're not going to try, then of course you're not going to make a difference.
It's fulfilling prophecy on every level.
Exactly. But now I think it's even more difficult for people because, you know, we're all in the sort of stay at home, protect the NHS and save lives era, which is absolutely right. But it doesn't mean that we just have to give up on, you know, questioning our members of parliament, holding people to account, finding out, staying educated, staying informed about what's going on in the world, simply because we have to do it from the confines of our own homes.
No, that's true. And I mean, your background, run me through, because I have a very specific question in mind that I want to ask you, but just tell us all a little bit about your background.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well,
the potted 1 minute version.
The potted 1 minute version. Okay, well, I am
actually over the age of 35 is bloody difficult.
So I am a chatty bookworm. So I guess it was always inevitable that I would end up in, you know, politics, PR and communications. And I went from working in Parliament in the run up to the 97 election to working for UNICEF. Loved working for UNICEF. Loved that whole go to work every day. And even though the job is sometimes boring, you still feel like you're making a little bit of a difference.
You're doing something.
Yeah, exactly. But I couldn't afford to pay my rent. So I had to go and get a slightly better paid job somewhere else. But I promised myself I'd go back to that kind of work. And so I spent 20 years working in PR, working as a lobbyist, working in communications, in advertising, and becoming an entrepreneur. I started my own, my first entrepreneurial business about 10 years ago. And, you know, I had a great career. I've had a lovely career. I've been very successful.
How did that not make you more cynical?
It's a really interesting question. I think because I've always believed in the possibility of change, always, my whole life. I don't know why. I'm perhaps just a natural optimist. So I actually believe that change is the natural order of things.
Okay. And where would where do you think that change originates from?
I believe that change originates with the individual.
Okay, because I've always believed in the good in humanity.
Yeah, exactly. So because I've always believed that change is possible, I suppose I've never allowed that cynicism to overlay that belief.
Yeah.
And my personal belief is that, you know, in a world where everybody is encouraged to be negative and to be cynical, that optimism is actually an act of courage. And it takes that optimism and that courage to change things.
Yeah, I agree. You're deeply, deeply brave to be optimistic. I love that. That is a great quote. Optimism is an act of courage. Okay, so you've done all this lobbying in PR. You've now pivoted, and you now.
So now I have a business called Actually, and essentially what happened was I sat down with a piece of paper and I wrote a list of all the things that I wanted to change in the world, like all the difference that I wanted to make. And it was such a long list. There was about 100 things on this list. And I was like, how the hell do I choose?
I love that exercise.
But you know what I mean, though? How do you choose between plastics in the ocean, tackling child poverty, dealing with trafficking, sex trafficking and child trafficking? How do you make the choice between those things? And I was really paralyzed for a while. I was like, how am I going to do this?
There's too much.
There's too much. And then all of a sudden I thought, maybe I don't have to choose. I could take everything I've learned over my career and I could help purpose-led entrepreneurs to really grow their businesses and make their difference in the world. And by doing that, I get to tick things off my list.
Yeah, and also you have much more impact, because if you impact one person, that person impacts 5 people who then impact their own. Got it? Yeah.
So I set up Actually, and my vision for Actually is, I want to see a world in which every business is driven by purpose. And if we are going to achieve that, then we have to demonstrate that purpose-led businesses are commercially viable, that, purpose sells.
So hang on a minute. So what do you think about now when you've got all these businesses in coronavirus going bust? And do you then think that, because I was talking, apologies to interrupt, but I'm like, I want to ask. I was talking to someone yesterday who said, but big business that can't survive should go bust. They literally should go bust. And so if you're looking at that, then does that mean that part of it is because they didn't have a purpose other than let me fly you to another country? But should businesses go bust because that's just the natural order of things?
So here's what I think about this, right? I think there are 3 kinds of businesses right now. There are the businesses that are in massively defensive paralysis, right? Slashing costs across the board. Sorry?
Yeah, my cat's getting down.
So those businesses that are in paralysis, they're slashing costs right across the board, I think are probably likely to crumble. Right. There are the businesses that will survive. So they'll do okay. They'll kind of, they'll come out the other side of it. And then there are the businesses that are going to really thrive on the other side of this recession. We are going to go into a fair, the OBR said a couple of days ago, the economy contracted by 35%. We're in a recession already. So might not be the economic definition of it, but, let's be realistic. So, you've got businesses that will go under, businesses that will survive, and businesses that will thrive. And I looked back at what happened in previous recessions. The business, and leaving purpose to one side, because there's a whole debate around purpose and values and how that instills loyalty within your community and within your customers. So you're more likely to hold your customers if you share a sense of purpose and values with them. The real difference between businesses that go under and businesses that thrive coming out of recession is balance. So businesses that slash costs right across the board are about, I can't remember the exact statistics, there's a Harvard Business Review study on this, are the least likely to thrive coming out of a recession. Because they get into this loss minimizing mindset. And it's a kind of siege mentality that stops them from innovating, stops them from attracting new customers, growing their market. So those businesses, will struggle. Then there's a group of businesses who go to the other extreme. They just go, right, hell for leather. Let's just do everything we can, invest as much as we can, attract as many people as we can. And those businesses too will really struggle because they don't do the cost cutting. The businesses that thrive are the ones that find balance.
Oh, I see what you mean. So the ones that are in the middle, that do some cost cutting, some innovating, some pivoting.
So the ones that essentially focus on cut your costs to improve operational efficiency and invest in marketing, advertising, PR, and innovation, those are the ones that thrive. And funnily enough, there's another piece of research that shows that the companies most likely to thrive coming out of recessions are those that have a significant proportion of female leadership, which I know you and I have talked about before.
Yes. So goody, I'm so pleased with that really neat segue into this thing, because that's, now that my cat issues are all done, forgive me for that, but it's like,
okay.
I read yesterday, day before, there was a Forbes article that said that countries run by women leaders have been markedly more successful at managing the entire process of coronavirus. There is, famously Jacinda
Ardern.
That one I just remember the Jacinda part from New Zealand, and there was New Zealand, Taiwan, Finland. There's about 7 or 8 of them. I mean, like Taiwan apparently had 1 death. And I'm sure this is a statistic that will change over time, but it was unbelievably different how places that were run by women ran the countries in coronavirus differently. Talk to me about that, because I don't think to me, this is not about male versus female leadership, but to me, what this is such, and this is what I've been talking about from last year, is that it is such a mass feminization of leadership. And a feminization of politics. And I think you have to feminize leadership and politics, as in pull back from where we've been going in the masculine dictatorship model, in order for us as a world to survive. Because I have to say, I'm saying this as a rabid capitalist ex-lawyer, immigrant, child, who thought money, grow, business, money, grow. And then I've sort of found myself going, ooh, actually, people, hello, kind of thing. And so please talk to me about that.
So, I mean, first of all, I think you're absolutely right. If you look at the countries that are doing best right now, the majority of those countries that are doing really, really well are run by women, or have women in very significant positions within cabinet or within their government structures. I just want to caution against, and I know you're not doing this, but a lot of people are, setting up this kind of false choice between masculine and feminine leadership, or between directive and collaborative leadership, or between kind of old paradigm and new paradigm leadership. I think it's a false choice. And the reason I think that is, up until now, we've been kind of pretty much exclusively in a world of, competitive, what is traditionally seen as masculine focused leadership. The answer to that is not to swing completely the pendulum in the other direction.
That thing about balance that you were saying.
And it's that thing about balance again, in the same way that companies that find that balance between cutting costs and investment succeed, leaders who find that balance between masculine and feminine, between directive and collaborative, between, decisive, let's do it now, fast, quick decision making, and pause and reflect, are the leaders that are most successful. And as it happens at the moment, the people who are exhibiting that kind of adaptability and flexibility and balance are female leaders. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it completely makes sense. I'm thinking that what I was thinking was pivotability, but I was thinking that I remember that becoming a lawyer and becoming a single parent very young, and having to work from home because it was I had a sick child and I just couldn't do anything but where I was and what I was. And I remember the sense of shame of having to hide that I was working from home, and having to hide that the children were there. Do you work from home? Oh yeah, and you don't have this big shiny office, and coming from that place. And I sit here today where we have taken, and it was a very much a female-male divide. It has been very strongly that, actually. And then you've got all these men that are now working from home and with the kids and doing this. And I'm like sitting there cracking up because we've had to do this. Now, why am I saying this? Because when you look at flexibility, pivotability, all of those things, it's because as women, we've had to manage so many roles in 1 hour, 1 day, 1 lifetime, that we are naturally, and again, I think this is hormonal. Estrogen forces us to be, estrogen works on a completely different playing field like this, whereas testosterone is very sort of focused and narrow-minded and pop in and kind of pop out of an issue sort of thing. So I think we're more set up to do that, but it can only be good for us that men actually learn to expand their horizons and take more things into account, right?
Exactly. And as I say, it's not an either or choice. You know, there are times when it's necessary to be single-minded and focused and driven, and there are times when it's necessary to be more collaborative, more consensual, more multifaceted, more multitasking. And the essence of great leadership is the ability to pivot, is the ability to make a decision on a case-by-case, moment-by-moment basis as to what is the best style of leadership, what is the best approach in these circumstances right now.
Especially because everything changes minute by minute. So what are you going to do? You have to change minute by minute.
Exactly. And that kind of really rigid mentality of this is the way that leadership is done, and this is the way it will always be done, is what sets up huge bear traps for people, because they are incapable then of adapting when everything changes. And we're going through an example right now of how fast things can change. What worked yesterday isn't going to work tomorrow.
No.
So, you know,
that today, for that matter.
Exactly. Or in an hour's time. So it's, you know, it's when things are changing as rapidly as they are, that's when that skill of flex and adaptability comes to the fore. And as you say, women have traditionally had to learn how to be that flexible and adaptable because we've had so many different roles running all simultaneously.
I want to talk about, and also if anybody watching has any questions, do please just post up the questions. But I want to talk about purpose. So when people, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I'm an entrepreneur because I want to pay my bills. I'm an entrepreneur because let's be really clear about this, because I'm a single parent. I needed to pay food, rent, school fees. And I wasn't sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, my Zen purpose in life is to improve humanity. My Zen purpose was to pay my goddamn bills. So when you're in that place and somebody talks about purpose-driven businesses, I always kind of shrank a little bit because I was like, I think that would be that person over there that went and raised their funding and did all of that. And it doesn't apply to me because I am a small business entrepreneur that's just trying to survive. And now I don't like being that place. I don't like being that person because I think that we all have to have a purpose. So can you make that sound okay for me somehow? So because I do have a purpose. My business is I help women over 40 to feel good again. I do. There is an entire group of women over the age of 40 that just aren't loving life, and I help them feel good again. And I became okay with that being my purpose, even though it sort of sounded a bit kind of not quite corporate lawyerish, because I can see the deep joy and happiness that what we do brings to women. And I'm like, that's important. That's so important. But
so you do have a purpose then?
I do. But it was that thing of, oh, it's a purpose-run business. I would never in a million years start something. I'm a purpose-led business. I would feel like I needed beads and you know, like, oh man, to do that.
Do I look like a...
That's why I'm asking you.
Ultimately, I feel like we all want our work lives, our businesses, our lives in general to have some kind of meaning, to be fulfilling in some way. And that isn't a need that is constrained to a particular group of, you know, sandal-wearing hippies. Sorry, sandal-wearing hippies who I love, but, you know, it's not confined to any particular group of people. The desire for fulfillment and the desire to feel as though when you look back at the end of your life, that your life had meaning, that it made some kind of difference, that it mattered that you existed on this planet at this moment, that you leave some kind of legacy. And I feel at this moment in time, in particular, I was talking to an amazing woman yesterday about this exact issue. And she was saying, you know, essentially, if not now, then when? If we're not going to make a difference now, when, you know, there are so many challenges that we face as a planet and as a human race, if we're not going to focus in on purpose and on the things that bring us joy and fulfillment, but the things that can also make a difference in the world, then when are we going to do it? Because we're kind of running out of time.
I agree, but it almost, when I was listening to you, I was like, that makes total sense, because I see my personal life like that. I would, my only regret would be if I died without having had the effect that I could have. If I failed in some way not to do what I was born to do, would be my biggest regret. But somehow, when people are hungry and people have no work, and people don't have what they're doing, it almost feels like, let's talk about your purpose, feels like a luxury. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm deeply passionate and purpose-driven personally. So I'm not trying to put it down. I'm like trying to say, what do you do then?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think, that is purpose a luxury? I can feel an entire blog on that subject.
Yes,
it's something I'd love to explore in a bit more detail. And I guess, there is that thing of purpose being a luxury.
No, not personal purpose, because I think personally you have to live, as a person, you have to live on purpose. You have to. But as a business, it almost feels like a luxury.
But by definition, if you're going into business, then you are above the stage of starvation and basic needs requirement.
Not in the time of coronavirus.
That is true. But then from a business perspective, one of the reasons I think purpose is really important, there's some really great research on purpose and values, right? So I think of the two things as being intertwined, because, your purpose and your values coexist. And your purpose is an expression, in a way, of your values as a person and as a business owner. Your purpose is an expression of your values.
Yes, 100%.
And there's great research to show. So put it into purely commercial terms, right? There is brilliant research to show that about 68% of customers will build a relationship with a brand or a company on the basis of shared values and a shared sense of vision and direction. So if you want to build great loyalty amongst your customers and attract people who will really build relationship and engagement with your business, then a sense of purpose and a clear set of values will actually help you to do that. So from a purely commercial perspective, it makes sense.
You're creating a tribe, and it is, okay, I see that.
And so as I say, it's not if we're going to create this world that I envisage, where businesses are all driven by purpose, then we do have to prove this point that purpose sells and purpose is commercially viable. And for me, the primary underpinning for that is tribe, is community, is loyalty. You and I both know from having run our own businesses, it is more expensive to attract one new customer than to keep an existing customer. And how you keep your existing customers is loyalty and community, built a relationship based on those shared values. And if you can do that and inspire them, take them on a journey with you towards your vision and your purpose, then you have those customers for life.
Okay, so then, and thank you, because you answered that really, really well. That makes a lot of sense to me. What, funny, you can communicate. What is it that, so if you're running a purpose-driven business, how is it that you are helping people to communicate that purpose, especially in a time like this? How should businesses communicate their purpose when we are in this terrible, terrible place? Because and obviously we're not communicating. In the old days we would say, well, we're selling a detox, and we're not doing that at all. We're helping you to feel good again. So, but okay, fine. But how do you, like the widget? How do you communicate the purpose how do you help people to do that? What should we do as businesses?
So
that sentence was so hard for me to get out. I was just like, no, there's something. I'm so sorry.
Not at all. I'm not sure I've 100% understood, but I'll give it my best shot.
How do you help businesses communicate their purpose? What should we do? What would you teach us as a business to communicate our purpose in times of this problem? Sure.
I actually feel like this context, the context that we're in at the moment, is almost like a red herring, because actually what people want right now, more than anything else, they want reassurance, they want connection, and they want to feel a sense of shared experience, that there are people alongside them on the journey with them. And one of the ways that you create that sense of connection and shared experience is through your vision and your shared sense of purpose.
Right.
We're all in this together and we're all aiming for the same thing. And so I find people are actively looking for that right now. And they're looking for that sense of optimism, of inspiration, that purpose gives us, and that vision gives us. So when I speak to people at the moment and they say, if this is what sits underneath the whole, should I really be selling right now? Should I really be marketing my business right now? Should I not just shut up shop and give everything away for nothing? And I'm like, well, first of all, absolutely not, because the economy will collapse.
Yeah.
And so will your business.
Yeah.
But also, actually, people want to feel that there is some degree of normality, and that there is a future beyond coronavirus, beyond this immediate crisis. And if you can continue to inspire people with your vision of the future, and therefore, reassure them that this is a moment in time and it will end, and when we come out the other side of this, this is the possibility that exists for us. This is what's available for us as individuals and as a human race. Then you've got them, and you've given them something which is really precious, which is a sense of optimism and hope.
I like that. That's really great. I wrote a newsletter about a couple of weeks ago where I said that I was so surprised because I was sitting there at night with my children, who are all teenagers and who I never see. And so, hooray for lockdown. And I had one over here on the left kind of reading paper, like a whole book. And the one on the right was actually having a conversation with the other one, and like talking, and then there was an adult telling a story, and there was somebody playing the piano. Yesterday we were like, one was trying to play the piano, one was doing jigsaw puzzles, and they were like #goals, it's lockdown. And I was laughing about this because I'm like, well, it's just a different way to live. And that it was absolutely unique that we were in a position like this, because this is how I grew up. I grew up in a little town like this big in the middle of Malawi, which had like 5 streets or maybe 10 streets. It just was absolutely minute. But this is how I grew up. And I sort of had a flashback because I was like, shit. We're literally doing my childhood. Only I did it with no internet and no TV. Just like
yeah.
Right. And the kids were just like, meh. But so it is. And when I wrote that and I sent it out to my tribe, what I was interested in was that people came back and went, wow, that was amazing. And I couldn't quite understand why it had touched so many hearts, but it was a way of saying that there was something good that came out of something bad. So you've just made a lot of sense out of that for me. So thank you. People
need hope right now. They need to know that there is something on the other side of this that can be good, and that will be progress, that will be better than where we were before. And I genuinely believe that we have this amazing opportunity right now to transition to create a new and different normal. And I think we will have failed as a country and as a world if post coronavirus we simply go back to normal.
I don't think we can, though. I really sincerely hope not. I read an article on somebody saying there's going to be a lot of gaslighting going on after, it never happened, we're all good, it never happened. And I'm like, yes, but there is just a place where we're never going to, I like, for example, single people. I'm like people, and not even just single people that live alone. I was like, it's never going to be the same again. And I was walking down in my 20 minutes of there was a man walking past talking to a woman, appropriately socially apart. And he said, I will never again just have sex with someone. I'm either going to just have sex because it's fun, or I'm going to have a relationship. And I turned around and started walking behind him because I was like, this conversation is fascinating. I'm not leaving. So if there's something weird following you, that was me. And because this is what he was saying that I'm never going to enter a relationship that I know is going nowhere ever again. because life is too short. And I was like, jeepers, we're never going to be the same. You can't be the same after having done something like this.
Yeah. And I pose questions to my community every week, and the sorts of questions that I've been posing recently are things like, what have you learned from this experience so far? What are you grateful for coming out of this experience so far? And what are you never going to take for granted again? You know, I am one of those.
Do again, right?
Yeah.
There are some things. So tell me, what were you going to say? You're never going to take for granted?
I'm one of those people. I live on my own. And I work from home a lot already. So the first few weeks of this, I was a bit like day-to-day basis, you know.
Me
not
too.
really that much different.
Like, other than having a lot of mouths to feed because everybody's actually home the whole time.
But then it suddenly occurred to me, I think a couple of things happened that made it very, very real. You know, a very, very good friend of mine got very ill. My niece got ill. Boris Johnson going into hospital, weirdly, really triggered me, even though I'm not a massive Boris Johnson fan. But, you know, nonetheless, your prime minister goes into hospital and then into ICU. That is a big moment for a country. So I think a lot of that sort of thing happened. And then I sat down and realized I hadn't touched another human being for 4 weeks. And I can't remember, there's some, you know, inspirational quote or, you know, one of those memes that says the average human being needs 8 hugs a day to be happy. And I'm like, I am storing up a serious deficit here.
Really, really. You really are, honestly. And it's really funny because you do get, like, I manhandle the children the whole time. I mean, and my kids are like old. They're like, just don't even come near me. I'm like, yes, you know. And they're kind of like, talk to them.
I can imagine this virus comes to an end. I am going to burst forth from my house and attack random strangers in the street, demanding hugs.
They'll be running the other way. The other thing is that whole handshake thing. My mother's like, you see, this is why we do this. So you don't have to shake hands. And I'm cracking up. I'm like, yeah, right. Okay, then. But it's very true. It's very true. You do kind of sit there and do that. But it's okay. So, Sara, it has been so much fun. Thank you. Tell me, how can people get hold of you?
So, well, there's a couple of things.
Oh no, and the internet.
Actually, I'm actually running a whole series of free masterclasses. Okay, am I back? I'm running a whole series of free masterclasses at the moment. So this is one of the sort of things that I'm doing to try and help purpose-led entrepreneurs and others to thrive through this crisis. And I'm covering all sorts of things. So I've done one on business finance. I've done one on sales and selling. And, you know, we were talking about how people are a bit, oh, should I really sell? Yes, please do. And I'm doing one tonight, actually, on leadership. So the sorts of things we've been talking about today. And then the next one next week is on social media and how to stand out in the kind of tidal wave of social media content. I saw statistics the other day that said Facebook use is up by 50%. And Facebook content is up by 50%. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
It's not like it was, you know.
With it before, I've given up. I'm kind of like, if somebody has something to say, they're going to have to go, oi, chick, look at this. But you could find, because this is all, because we've been running it live, you could go onto our YouTube channel, which is the Nosh Detox with the purple logo. And you can put in the link under there, please.
Perfect.
In the comments, so that if people want to find you, they can.
That'd be lovely.
And we can put that underneath there. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. Sara, thank you so much. That was
You're so welcome.
Huge fun, and we got to we were sort of starting over there and we got over there, but that was exactly what we needed to do.
Exactly.
Just be well,
and you.
and get to really enjoy those hugging moments.
Cannot wait. Lovely to meet you properly. Thanks so much, Geeta. See you soon.